This interview is brought to you by Nutanix. The Nutanix platform drives government innovation by harnessing enterprise AI, simplifying VM container convergence, enhancing resilience and security for critical apps and data, and operating efficiently at scale across edge, private, public, and hybrid clouds. Nutanix, transforming today's technology for governments tomorrow.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Seibert, Managing Editor of CIO Media and Research, and I'm here at Nutanix NEXT in Washington, D.C. Joining me is Lee Caswell, SVP of Product Marketing at Nutanix. Thanks so much for joining me, Lee.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, so speaking about some of the government initiatives you have in play, I know the new administration has released a lot of new directives around emerging tech.
Yeah.
So specifically with AI and acquisition, and how do you see from the federal tech landscape that evolving to boost innovation?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of customers. Here we are in D.C., right? And, a tremendous amount of federal customers, public sector workers coming in to talk about how infrastructure can actually help, right, going forward.
Right.
And what they're finding, right, is that there's a lot of new technologies that are having to be assimilated here. So things like, for example, GPUs, like how do you bring those into a model? Turns out when you move to a modern infrastructure, that's what Nutanix does. That's why we have over 5,000 people here talking about this. You can go and take the latest GPUs or just large language models, right? So these are, for a lot of customers, these are new. We're helping make it simple to bring those into production.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Yeah. And so what are some of the challenges with tech adoption, and how can agencies and organizations overcome them?
One of the things is about skill sets, right? We have people who are trained on, let's say, traditional virtual machines, for example, right? They're talking about standard storage and compute and software. The idea that now, how are those same customers going to take on containers, for example, and do Gen AI workloads, right? How do you train and make it an extension of what you know instead of something completely different? Right. That's what we're helping is you can bring in these new technologies like Kubernetes and containers, and they can be managed by the same teams that have done all of your mission critical workloads for years.
Right, and I think you just alluded to this, but I'd love for you to expand on how agencies and organizations can streamline migration when moving to that modern infrastructure.
Yeah, so a lot of customers are moving from kind of traditional virtualization methods, right? And so they can move those VMs. We have a tool. It's called, wait for it, the Move tool.
Oh!
So it's easy to remember from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Move tool basically helps you take traditional vSphere, VMs and move those to a Nutanix environment. So that's a very flexible tool for customers to get started with. We also have the ability now, we announced at the show, adding support for external storage, right? Yeah. So we added support for pure storage, right, at this conference. That allows you to bring that into the Nutanix mix. Containers, we've got all the new training on being able to run containers, run them with the same data services that we have for, we call it enterprise Kubernetes anywhere, right? So that's the theme of the show, by the way, run anything, anywhere.
Yeah, I love the stickers, by the way.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Very simple, easy to remember.
So how, as we talk about, a lot of government agencies face challenges with exactly this, migrating.
Right.
So what role do private-public partnerships play in achieving some of these lofty goals?
Yeah, so the ecosystem is extremely important, right? Making sure that you have the right set of partners. We have 85 sponsors here, right, who are basically coming here, right? It's all the major hardware providers, now the 3 major hyperscaler clouds, right, including Google Cloud now, right, added this week. As well as now, think of service providers and all of our partners, right, who can help make sure that for federal deployments, we can do this simply and easily. Also, one important thing is we've taken some of the services we had that were delivered from the public cloud, things like our centralized management, it's called Nutanix Central, right?
Yeah.
And so
I love these names.
I know, they're simple, so you can easy to remember them. And the idea here was that moving those so you could deploy them in a dark site, an air-gapped, cyber-resilient infrastructure, we're finding that was a really top ask from our customers here, right? Yeah. Bring these so that they're available in an air-gapped environment. Now I can use them at scale.
Right, yeah. I was at the public sector lunch earlier, and they asked, how many people are using this, and half the room raised their hand.
It's important for things like ransomware protection. For example, like how do I manage ransomware and remediate quickly, right? Get notified right away.
Right.
Now that capability is available in an on-prem site, right? So that's a really important aspect for customers looking to be protected.
Right. So as we talk about, the evolution of tech, what are some of the things you're most excited about, exciting use cases that you see into play, especially as it relates to government and those agencies? Well,
I don't think you can go to a conference without talking about AI, generative AI. And the reason why is that it really does change the way, transforms the way you think about things. It used to be, if you remember search, right? Google, you would go and like ask a question and you get a series of links, and you were basically the person who would, all right, I think I'll click this one, right? ChatGPT came along, and it was a query, and you got a prompt, a single answer, right? Mm-hmm. Now what's happening is we call it agentic AI.
Yeah.
And it's now AI is my agent. So I'll get that first result, and now the AI itself will go and refine the results. And so it refines it for a few things, right? So guardrails is a way to say, hey, what does my legal department say about, like, what don't I want to go expose externally, right?
Right.
Or ethical reasons, right? And so those guardrails, these are called models, agentic models.
Right.
What we announced at the show is that we are working with NVIDIA on their latest models, these agentic models they call them, right? Yeah. So you can easily bring those in, and we're helping customers, including federal customers, deploy these for production-ready status and simplifying it so you don't have to have experts to do all of these different pieces.
Right. It's super exciting. And that's one of my questions I ask a lot of people is, what are you most excited for? And agentic AI specifically is a very common response. So
I think a lot of folks are just hesitant. They don't know how to get started.
Right.
Right. And so you can start thinking, what are the pieces I need to have access to? So last year, we announced almost like an app store for LLMs, these large language models, right? So the app store was like, okay, I can go and bring those into the model. Awesome. Now with the support for agentic workflows, we're helping customers get to that next ready phase and says, hey, I don't have to go and spend, overly spend.
Right.
I can go and get started in a small manner, deploy my first application, be successful in that, and then scale that out over time.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to see how all of this evolves, and thank you so much for having us here, hosting this conference. It's really interesting to learn about these different solutions. So thanks
for bringing your perspective here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.